Welcome to Chasing Sunsets, a video blog about life, getting through it, moving forward, and all of the amazing things that we have around us. My name is Deanna Byrne, and I am a life coach with Deanna Byrne Coaching, as well as the creator of the international podcast called Meditate with Deanna. Today, I want to talk a little bit about a letter that I wrote to myself in January of this year. On January 16th, 2020, it was a normal day for me. It was a Thursday. And my husband and I were driving to Halifax for an appointment that day. And at 7:30 p.m. that evening, I would have an emergency room doctor ask me if my husband had a do not resuscitate order in place. In that moment, my world changed forever. He would live for the next 36 hours. And on January the 18th, I would hold him in my arms as he took his last breath. The next 2 years were dark and awful for me. And I was very public during my whole grief journey because I found that gave me a sense of release. It was very healing for me to do that. So it made sense to me that on the second anniversary of his death this year, I decided that it was time to talk to my new self. So I wrote a letter to her. A letter to my new self. 2 years of growing from crawling out of the pits of hell. It was dark, it was hard, and it was dirty. When I lost my husband in January 2020, I felt as though my life had ended. The grief and pain were indescribable. I could not breathe, I could not sleep, and I could not function. I spiraled mentally, and I slowly fell into the rabbit hole. I found alcohol for me was a source of retreat. I drank more than I had in years. Shortly after he died, we then went into a worldwide lockdown that was only supposed to last 2 weeks. Then 2 years later, grieving alone and confined would then be one of the darkest and most difficult times in my life. He died in January 2020. And in June of that year, I decided I could no longer stay in our family home. I made the decision to move to our camper for a while so I could figure things out, packed everything up, and put it in storage. Our life was all packed away in storage. Life that was supposed to be was now all hidden away. In November of that year, I moved into my mother's home thinking that would be a place of regeneration and healing. It was not. It became darker for me, and I retreated deeper within my own grief. I stopped eating well, I stopped exercising, I literally stopped giving a shit. In May of 2021, I went to my trailer for the weekend and I ended up staying there. It was a place where I felt I could begin the slow and brutal journey of recovery from my own self. Every single step for me was like climbing a mountain. It was painful. It pulled raw emotion to the surface. But it forced me to face my demons head on, and I was so focused on destroying those bastards. I survived that time by embracing some amazing friendships and support at my campground. Every single person placed in my path during those dark times were there to lift me, to hold me, and to push me, even if they didn't even know it. And for that, and for them, I will be eternally grateful. In August of 2021, I became sick with what I thought was the flu. And I ended up being a dead gallbladder that had poisoned my blood and had made me septic. They determined in the ER that I literally had days to live. I'd lost a lot of blood during surgery, and my liver enzymes were high, and my hemoglobin was then dangerously low. They risked it and operated anyway. Did you know the gallbladder in Chinese medicine is associated with unresolved anger and grief? I made it through surgery and into recovery, and that is where the real work began. It rocked me to my absolute core. It pulled me into myself. I begged God to let me live after I had asked him so many times in the past several months to take me. For once, I wanted to live. I wanted to have a future, and I wanted to grow. It forced me to focus on what really mattered, what I needed, and my daughter. Seeing her in the emergency room, crying, begging me to live, forever changed me. It rocked me to my absolute core. In that moment, I started giving a shit again. The recovery process was brutal. There are no words to even describe the physical and emotional pain that you go through. But I kept putting one foot in front of the other. I forced myself to do 500 steps, then 1,000 steps, then 5,000, then 6,000, and so on. Every single step to me was a ladder out of the pits of hell. I then made the decision to move closer to my daughter again, found a great place that was mine. For the first time in 35 years, it was all about me. It was about me finding what my soul needed and what I wanted for myself, for my future, and for my family. It was a huge pivot for me. I started hiking and pushing myself further and further every single time, yoga and Pilates and back into my deep meditation practice. Every single day, I would make myself move, clear my head, and visualize what my new normal was. I completely changed my diet, and I refused to fill my body with crap that screws with your mind. I started laughing again. The human body is an incredible machine. My last physical after my surgery was spot on. All of my blood work was normal. My resting heart rate was perfect. My liver enzymes had fully recovered. My hemoglobin was perfect. It was nothing short of a miracle, really. On the anniversary of Terry's death, I was really feeling a bit deep. And I wanted to talk to the new me, the fighter, the warrior, and the girl who just wanted to live. I wanted to tell her she was a rock star. So I stood and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I looked at my stomach and I held it, knowing that it grew the most incredible human being who literally saved my life. And the scars from my surgery, which were so horrendous to me, but that surgery saved my life. I was grateful and I was humbled in that moment. So, a letter from my old me to the current me to the future me. You can overcome every single obstacle. You can always get back up. You can always hold gratitude. It may be a really shitty time, but you and only you can pull yourself out of the pits of hell. You need to want to, and I mean really, really, really want to. Find your passion and find your purpose. You will be so incredibly happy that you did. I was so public about the whole grief process and the journey itself. And this seemed like a fitting blog post at that time because she was gone. She grew. She grew through it. And she blossomed into a beautiful butterfly. I have grown and I have conquered one of the worst internal wars imaginable. I survived. If you're going through deep grief, you need to know that after losing someone, it is hard, and I know where you are, but you need to know you're going to get through it. I promise.